So today I want to go over the return of the dirt farm that also seems to be one of the best gold farms in the War Within. Now, if you remember the launch of Dragonflight, everybody was running around with an inventory full of shovels, picking up as much dirt as humanly possible, and this farm is kind of like that, just it's a lot more rewarding in terms of gold and some other items, and is also a lot more fun because there's a lot more variation in this farm. Now, all you're going to need to start this farm is Renown 2 with the Ringing Deeps, which you should get during the main quest line, and once you've gotten Renown 2, you'll start to see Disturbed Earth spawn. Now, to see these more easily, go into your interface options, and under Outline mode, make sure to turn this on at least for quest objectives, because this Disturbed Earth is considered a quest, so this will give all of the Disturbed Earth a purple outline. It'll make them much easier to spot, and you're really going to need to have this turned on to be able to actually farm these. Now, these piles of Disturbed Earth are basically going to be a treasure pickup just with more gameplay involved, because anytime you interact with these, a small little event will spawn. Sometime it'll just spawn like this pile of wax you pick up and that gives you the loot. Sometimes it'll spawn an enemy to kill, which you kill that'll give you the loot. Sometimes it'll spawn this big sack that you have to defend against kobolds, and then you loot the sack at the end, that'll give you loot. Sometimes it spews out a bunch of globs of wax that you have to stand in to get the loot. So there's a bunch of small little events that makes this version of the dirt farm much more interesting than it was in Dragonflight. Now, getting a loot from any of these piles of dirt will give you a handful of different things. It'll usually give you a few valor stones, which we'll go over later in the video because that's actually a really good part about this farm. And then it'll also give you some amount of random materials or resources. And these mats that you're getting from these Disturbed Earth can actually be like crafted items, so you can get ingots, you can get inks, or you can just get any base resources. So you can randomly get like a handful of alloy or ingots that are worth thousands of gold just from looting one of these. But that part's completely random, and since there's so many mats, you're not always going to be getting thousands of gold per, but you'll pretty much always be getting some amount of some resource you can go sell in the auction house for some gold. Well, one of the main things you're getting from all of these piles of dirt are odd globs of wax. This is kind of like the main currency you're getting from these, and these odd globs of wax are going to be a turn-in that'll give you another resource that then you can spend on certain items that can make you a ton of additional gold, which is where a large chunk of the gold is going to be coming from. So once you've obtained some of these odd globs of wax, you can go to the main town in the Ringing Deeps, and in one of the buildings there'll be 2 kobold NPCs. One of them you turn the wax into, and every 5 wax you turn into this kobold will fill up their meter 10%. Every time you turn in 5, you're also going to be getting 10 flight stones and 10% of this bar. Once you completely fill up this bar, you'll be given a Fireflight ruby. Now, there's a vendor right next to this kobold NPC that you can spend these Fireflight rubies at, and you can buy a handful of different things. You can buy some toys, you can buy some pets, but the main things is you can buy some bags of resources, and these bags of resources you're going to be buying are going to add a massive amount of additional gold to this farm. Now, the bags you can buy with these Fireflight rubies will just give you a bunch of a certain material depending on the bag you're going to be buying, but the main thing we're going to want to be getting is the waxy bundle of dust, because this is going to give you enchanting mats, and enchanting mats are very expensive in the War Within. Specifically, storm dust, the kind of base resource, is very expensive. Even at the lowest quality, I think it's still over 100 gold right now, so it's pretty crazy. And buying one of these bags will give you right around 70 storm dust. It goes up or down, but it averages around 70 storm dust, and it's usually around 5 to 10 gleaming shards. And getting one of these bags right now can give you like 15 to 20,000 gold, depending on if you get a high or a low roll with the amount of materials that bag is going to be giving you. So this is a ridiculous amount of additional gold on top of all of the other materials you're getting from this farm. Now, it seems seems like on the high end, you're going to be getting around 200 of this wax per hour. So that means you'd be able to turn in all this wax for around 4 Fireflight rubies an hour. So just getting these bags from the farm, not counting any of the other things you're getting from doing this farm, you can make upwards of like 50,000 gold just from these bags. And you will actually be able to make probably around that, or even maybe a little bit more, just from getting the mats from doing the farm itself. Now you may have noticed that I haven't given a location of where to go farm this dirt, and that's because any zone in the War Within and pretty much any area within those zones can spawn this dirt. You'll see it pretty much everywhere, especially when you get that outline. So you could just fly around any zone and find quite a lot of this dirt. Now there is an area that I think is a bit more optimal than just flying around randomly, but I think there's 2 ways you can go about doing this farm. The first way is just fly around the zones and look for any of this dirt. And if you want to make a lot more gold while doing that, do this on a character that has herbalism and mining, so both gathering professions, and only stop when you find dirt or you find any of the infused mining or herbalism nodes, because that will just allow you to most optimize the amount of materials you're getting, both through getting the dirt and through mining and herbalism. Now this is going to be quite a bit less efficient in just finding the dirt. But if you're looking for a location to only farm this dirt, especially if you don't have gathering professions, you want to go to the Lights Blooming in Hollowfall. This is the like open world event where there's a bunch of farmland and there's enemies everywhere and there's all these different sections, and you're primarily going to want to be flying around the different farmland areas, which are kind of in the middle of this area and the middle of this open world event. And the big reason you're wanting to do this here is because first off, these piles of dirt are much easier to see here just because this is all farmland and it's really easy to just see all of the dirt here. And second off is because it seems like this area just has a really high density of these dirt farms. So you're getting a lot of dirt farms and they're much easier to see. But on top of that, these dirt piles also seem to have some amount of like force spawning or hyper spawning, where if someone goes and interacts with one of these piles of dirt, a new one in a certain vicinity will spawn. And that also means that this area is better than a lot of other areas because of the fact that this is this open world event where a lot of people are coming here to do the dailies here or farm all the different materials you can get here. A lot of people will be interacting with this dirt just naturally, so the spawns will constantly be refreshing, meaning you're just going to be finding a lot more piles of dirt. And with this being a relatively small area and other players interacting with this dirt, pretty much any amount of people can go also obtain the loot from that one pile of dirt. So let's say one player interacts with a pile of dirt and it spawns the pile of wax that you just interact with, and that gives you the loot. Well, if someone in this area does that and then you fly by and see the wax on the ground, you can go pick up that wax as well. And let's say someone interacts with one of these piles of dirt and it spawns an enemy you kill that you have to kill to actually get the loot from it. Well, if you see another player interact with dirt and it spawns that enemy, you can also go tag that enemy and you'll be able to get the same loot. So having a bunch of other players here also interacting with the dirt just increases the amount of loot you're going to be getting here, because you can just fly by, go pick up wax that someone else spawned, or go tag an enemy that someone else spawned as well, and all the different players here are going to be getting the loot. So it just increases the total loot you'll be able to obtain. And also a druid is slightly better for this farm because they have flight form, so they can still interact with this dirt while in flight form and just be able to instantly get in flight form. So that'll be a little bit more optimal, but you're also going to want a character that's actually somewhat geared. You can bring an alt here. So if you have like a level 70 druid that you bring here, you could do that as well. They'll be able to kill any of the random enemies you have to kill or any of the enemies you're aggro trying to interact with the dirt. A low level or much more geared druid will be a little bit more optimal. But that's the entirety of this farm. You're just going to be interacting with this dirt, getting all these random resources, even random resources that you usually need to craft with a profession. Then you're getting all this wax you go turn in to get bags of additional mats that will just allow you to make quite a lot of gold an hour. I think my average is a little over 100,000 gold an hour doing this farm. So it's incredibly strong. And I also personally find this farm pretty interesting with all the little events that can pop out from this dirt. It keeps it quite interesting, a lot more interesting than a lot of the other gold farms in the game are. But that's all I wanted to go over, so thanks for watching.